Have you ever been told you're just too sensitive or that you overthink everything? Well, today we're going to flip that script because what if that's actually your greatest strength? We're diving into the hidden gifts of what's called a highly responsive nervous system.
So first, let's just get this out of the way. We need to tackle a huge and honestly pretty damaging misconception. For way too long, being sensitive has been misunderstood, slapped with all these labels that don't even begin to tell the whole story. I mean, think about it for a second. Do you ever walk into a room and just immediately pick up on the vibe? Or maybe you tend to avoid big crowds because all that noise and energy just feels like way too much? If anyone's ever accused you of overthinking, well, you're going to want to stick around for this. And here's the thing, for so many people, these experiences get framed as some kind of weakness, like a flaw you're supposed to fix. But what if that's completely backwards? What if we've been looking at this from the wrong angle this whole time? That brings us to a much more accurate and frankly, more empowering way to look at this, one that's actually grounded in biology. So let's talk about what's really going on. What we're really talking about is a highly responsive nervous system. And the key phrase there is biological trait. This is not a personality flaw, it's about how your brain is literally wired. It just means you process everything, sights, sounds, emotions, you name it, more deeply and more thoroughly than most. And let me be absolutely crystal clear about this. It is not a disorder. It's not something broken that needs fixing. It's simply a different way of experiencing the world, and in a lot of ways, a much richer one. So you can think of this system as having two main parts. First, you've got hyper-awareness. This is like your external radar. It's always on, picking up on tiny details, subtle shifts in someone's body language, a little change in the environment. And then there's high interpersonal sensitivity. That's your internal radar, and it's finely tuned to the emotional temperature of a room, all the unspoken feelings floating around. Okay, so now that we've reframed what this trait actually is, let's get to the really good stuff, the unique strengths, the actual gifts that come along with it. We're going to walk through 5 pretty incredible strengths that are a direct result of this responsiveness. We've got deep observation, high empathy, intuitive insight, subtle communication, and we'll wrap up with creative thinking. All right, let's kick things off with gift number 1, which is really the foundation for everything else, deep observation. This is that hyper-awareness we just talked about put into action. You're that person in a meeting who sees a colleague's tiny, fleeting frown that gives away how they really feel. Or you spot the one small inconsistency in a document that everybody else just scanned right over. You are literally seeing what isn't being said out loud. Now, being able to observe things so deeply leads right into the second gift, an incredible capacity for high empathy. Because you're so plugged into all those subtle emotional signals, your ability to feel for others is, well, extraordinary. It's one thing to understand what someone is feeling, but you often genuinely feel it right along with them. And that's what makes you such an amazing friend, a trusted teammate, or an incredibly insightful leader. So, what happens when you combine that deep observation with this high empathy? You get the third gift, powerful intuitive insight. Your brain is constantly gathering and processing all this extra data, the microexpressions, the tone of voice, the emotional undercurrents. And the result? A seriously powerful intuition. You know those gut feelings you get? They're usually spot on because you're connecting dots that other people don't even see. And of course, having that kind of insight naturally flows into our fourth strength, the art of subtle communication. When you can sense how people are feeling and pretty much anticipate how they'll react, you become a very, very skilled communicator. You know just the right thing to say, and maybe more importantly, what not to say. It's like you can feel the impact of your words before they even leave your mouth. And that brings us to our fifth and final gift, which kind of ties everything together beautifully. Creative thinking. I mean, it just makes sense, right? If your mind is constantly taking in more information, more details, more emotional data, more subtle connections, then it is primed for creativity. You see the world in higher definition, and that lets you find patterns and make connections that lead to some truly original and innovative ideas. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's really all about a shift in perspective. It's about stopping, looking at this trait not as some kind of burden, and starting to embrace it as the superpower it really is. So if you walk away with anything, let it be this. Having a highly responsive nervous system is not a personal failing. It's a biological trait, and it comes with a pretty amazing set of rare strengths. Your perception isn't a weakness, it's a powerful tool. And just reframing it like this, that's the very first step to really owning it.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. Now that you can see these things not as flaws, but as gifts, as your own personal superpowers, how are you going to use them?